Emmett, Bill, Gil, thanks again for the opportunity to update everyone on Alimera Sciences. As you saw in the slide from Emmett, the Alimera Sciences product Illuvien is committed to treatment of diabetic macular edema with our product Illuvien. Illuvien elutes 0.2 micrograms of a steroid called fluocinolone acetonide on a daily basis, allowing the doctor to have one implant and treat the patient for up to 36 months. Illuvien is the only therapy in DME that provides a continuous microdose therapy, allowing the doctor to treat DME every single day. One of our challenges, though, since we launched Illuvien in 2015, has been the fact that when we went through our registration trial, the anti-VEGF agents were not approved for the treatment of DME. Therefore, many doctors have asked us over the last 2 years or so, is there U.S. data they can see that gives them some insight into the effect of Illuvien in microdosing therapy in conjunction with or subsequent to these anti-VEGF agents. So I am very pleased today, for the first time, to present to you our user study, which is a multi-center trial of some of our early adopters with 130 patients, representing 160 eyes. This is very close to the number of eyes that was in the active arm of our FAME trial, so a significant number of patients. You notice that the patient had to be receiving Illuvien prior to January 1 of 2016, therefore assuring at least 18 months of follow-up. And the objective of the trial was to determine visual outcomes pre and post Illuvien, the reduction in the treatment burden, number of injections, pre and post Illuvien, and then of course, since Illuvien is a steroid, looking at the IOP signal, the side effects is typically associated with long-term steroids. Well, if you take it from the top line, all patients, we were very encouraged when you look at the entire population at visual acuity, you'll note that before Illuvien, in the 36 months prior, patients were receiving injection every 3 months approximately. Post-Illuvien, they were receiving injections once every 14.3 months, or a reduction in the treatment burden of 80%, and yet the visual acuity was never compromised. I'll say that one more time. The visual acuity stayed the same in all of these patients, even though the treatment burden was reduced by 80%. When you look at this on a basis of subgroups on what the patient's vision was when they received Illuvien as a baseline, it becomes even more interesting. The green line represents patients who are seeing quite well, 20/40 or better. The blue line, 20/50 to 2100, 2100 to 2200, and the bottom line are patients suffering from poor vision at greater than 2200 best corrected. One quick note that we saw right away, the doctors were surprised at how many patients are at the end. If you look on the bottom right, 67 patients of the 160, or 42% of the patients in this trial were actually seeing 20/40 or better. Their vision was fine, but clearly they either did not want to or could not maintain the treatment burden associated with these injections, as Emmett alluded to in his earlier talk. And so we reduced the treatment burden by 87% in these patients who are already seeing well, but did not need to have these continuous injections. Conversely, patients at the bottom, where the treatment burden is clearly not the issue, they're losing vision. They were receiving injections again at the same 3 months, but their vision's going down. They're actually losing vision. The Illuvien was injected, and over the next 15 months, they received 15 letters or 3 lines of visual improvement in conjunction with combination therapy of anti-VEGF. As you note, they were getting injections in addition about every 6.7 months. So interestingly, if you look at the left side of the Illuvien dotted line, regardless of the patient's visual acuity, they're still just getting these injections every 3 months. It kind of surprised the doctors as they look back at their chart reviews that they didn't modify the injections based on visual acuity. However, on the right side, once you have a continual dose, you have a baseline therapy, these patients begin to be treated on a customized basis. You notice 6.7 months for the patients who have worse vision versus once every 22 for those. So we think we answer both questions of combination of visual acuity, if that's necessary to treat the patient, or the treatment burden associated with anti-VEGF monotherapy for patients who don't want to or cannot comply even though they have good vision. Clearly, we're very excited about this information. We just got this last month, but that's subjective data. A lot of doctors say, I'd rather see the OCT because, as we know, visual acuity can be somewhat subjective. So let's look at that, and the message is still very good. As you can see, a 75% reduction in the treatment burden pre-Illuvien versus post-Illuvien, and yet the OCT measurements continue to get better. We think this really is a compelling thesis that if you can dose the patient on a daily basis with microtherapy, you continue to see good outcomes for these patients. Well, Illuvien is a steroid, and so as we said, the third thing to look at was the safety and the IOP signal. And happily, there was no IOP signal. So patients who were used on label, and remember our label requires a prior course of corticosteroid where no clinically significant IOP was noted, patients did not have increase in intraocular pressure because they had been given a prior course of corticosteroid. So the myth that if I give out Illuvien, I'm going to have steroid-induced IOP is just that. We simply don't see IOP rises like people might think, and certainly at a minimum, the IOP signal is manageable for the Illuvien patient. You'll be hearing more about this at ASRS. We're obviously very excited about this data. More importantly, our reps will be armed with this in the coming quarters. They'll be able to take this into the doctor's office, and we think it'll really begin to drive revenue. Turning to revenue, we were very happy with 2016, a 50% increase in revenue year over year from 16 over 15. We just posted our earnings call, did an earnings call 2 weeks ago where we posted $10.4 million in quarterly revenue. For the first time in the history of the company, we had an adjusted EBITDA positive of $500,000, and we're moving closer and closer to positive cash flow, which we expect to attain at the end of the year. We think we had a healthy balance sheet with $26.9 million in cash, allowing us to continue to look at strategic opportunities, one of which we just announced about a month ago, actually, our collaboration with our partner, Savita. We acquired the rights to expand the indication for Illuvien in the EU and the MEA for posterior uveitis. We will be meeting with the MHRA next month and intend to file during the course of 2018 in the 17 countries where we hold a marketing authorization. We expect revenues and launches to begin in these countries in first quarter of 2019. So an exciting time for Alimera. It's been a long road for us. We think we see the light at the end of the tunnel to profitability and to increase revenue. I look forward to discussing this data more with you during the ASRS, but also as we move forward in the coming quarters. Thank you for your time.